Hornists, you'll see string trios. Those literally stand outside of a place like a Doubleday bookstore and play. They're Juilliard graduates. They can't get employment.
And it's because they're using for background music both in commercials and films. I guess
so.
More contemporary things. Yeah, everybody thinks you got to have that beat.
That's
sound.
right.
Yes. Yeah. Look at him. Lean in. Oh, lean in. Oh, all right. Okay, thank you.
I hope that maybe in the 1980s classical music will suddenly have a resurgence. I hope. There's a possibility of it.
Excuse me. We're going to go a little longer. Do you want time cue still down to 8 minutes?
No, if we can go longer.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
shoot a little longer.
All right, fine. Just tell her.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, fine.
You're here in case she passes out from the overload of work.
All right, we're ready? Okay.
One to hold the watch and the other one to hit it.
We're on, Dustin.
Hi.
Dustin, it is such a pleasure to have you in Dallas and Fort Worth, and I guess all the interviewers have been telling you the same thing, because I think most of us have never interviewed you before. It's really a kick to get a chance to meet you and talk with you.
Thank you.
I want to know, though, Dustin, you are, by the time this tour is over, they tell me you will have done something like 350 interviews. And I want to know, why are you working your buns off?
My buns. My buns. Well, that's precisely why. I have big buns. And I've been trying to work them off for a long time. Someone said if you go out and do 350 interviews, you'll work your buns off. And here I am toward the tail end of it. No pun intended. No pun intended. No. I like this movie, and I like my buns. And you know, the last time I did this was on The Graduate 12 years ago. I had little buns then. You get bigger buns as you get older. We're doing okay. And so I thought 12 years later, with a case of big buns, I'd go out and work them off. And this is a good movie. This is a really, a good movie is an accident, I think, because I've made 14 movies in about 12 years now. And every movie that you carefully research and you know, ponder over before you decide to do it, you talk with the director, you talk with the writer. If, like me, you do have the luxury to pick and choose, then you really want to do something that's going to be hopefully a work of art. And you find out that somehow everything that has great intentions doesn't turn out that way all the time, and that a good movie winds up being an accident because some miracle put the right combination of people together where the energy didn't get dissipated, which usually happens because in a collaborative art form it's many times an uncooperative collaborative art form, and all the fighting that goes saying, no, what I'm saying is the truth, and the other one says, no, the way I want to do it is the truth, and you wind up jamming the circuits. And in this experience there was a director, Bob Benton, who wrote the script, a producer, Stanley Jaffe, a cast which you were saying before you thought was excellent, and I must say I think they turned really first-rate acting performances. Meryl Streep, Jane Alexander, and of course Justin Henry, and we are in a sense the principal characters. There's nothing else. It's four walls, four actors. There's no big action. There's no big soundtrack. There's nothing to carry the film except the personal truth that we try to invest in each and every one of us. A film can be a religious experience. I hate to be corny, but if you're dealing with the lives of people on the screen, they are they're fictional realities of real people that have put themselves into it. And a film such as this, which has to do with the breakup of a house, a home, something that we all fantasize in the time that we're children. Can't wait to be a daddy, and I can't wait to be a mommy, and I can't wait to have that house with the picket fence that I want to have that perfect family structure. And I'm not going to make the mistakes that my parents made. We all say this. And then we grow up and we see in some form or another that dream shattered, and that love binding somehow is split asunder. What we tried to do here was to put our experiences or our essential truths on the screen, what we really feel, not what we have seen before in movies and television about the same subject. It's like someone will tell you what birth is like when you watch the birth of your the first child that you have, and then when you experience it's not the same thing that you've heard. It's always different. Like I was always told, when that baby comes out, you're going to see your own baby. It's going to be the most incredible thing you've ever. And it wasn't for me. That baby came out. I knew it was mine, but it was a stranger. I had no strong connection. The connection I had was with my wife, who was giving birth at that time. That was the strongest moment we had ever had. You know, the baby was almost not secondary, but not the same emotional thing that I was told I would experience. And the same is true with my own marriage, that when my own marriage did not work out, we became separated, the feelings that I had subsequently to it were different from anything I had ever read or seen. Just different. So you want to put on screen what you feel. And the strongest thing that I felt, the director also felt, and he was not divorced, but he had had some tough times. The producer was divorced. And we all agreed on something that I was wanting to bring forth. And Meryl Streep was not divorced. She just recently gotten married and had a child, I think, a couple days ago. But she had been in love with a man who had died. And somehow we were all putting our feelings together, and we felt something very strongly, that these two people in Kramer versus Kramer are in love. And that doesn't go away when the marriage breaks up. There's a love that remains, and I don't think we ever had seen that explored on the screen. So I think it's one of the things that is somehow the most poignant, if not the most painful aspect of this film, is that there aren't these heroes and villains and good guys and bad guys in the form of husband and wife fighting over the custody of a child. Rather, there are people who were in love who no longer can live together, and the love gets convoluted and turned into anger and resentment and everything, but it's because that love did not gel, and that's what we tried to explore. End of speech.
In this movie, the little boy, Justin Henry, is quite a remarkable performer, and yet he has never acted before. Now, supposing it hadn't worked, Dustin, supposing that this child with so much potential, when you really got there day in, day out, supposing it hadn't worked.
Fire him. No, we would have had to. If it didn't, we had a second and third choice. We had 3 children that we wound up screen testing out of 300 that we saw. If he didn't work out, we would have had to, go back and start over again with someone else. But we did want to take the gamble of having someone who gave off a few things. One was a need to be loved, contradicting itself with a fierce sense of independence, which he seemed to give off in life. There was also a kinetic response that we had where we didn't have to work for a father and son relationship. What exists on that screen is what I felt about him, and I think what he felt. It's also shared by the crew. We tended to fall in love with him, and before that film was over, or by the time it was over, it was a painful goodbye for everybody. He was a part of our families, in a sense. But the thing that he had more than any other quality was this soft toughness that it gets you. He is the center of that film. That film does not begin to exist without him. I think if he did not work out and some other child had been in it, it would not be the same film. You could get somebody else to play my part, you get someone else to play Meryl's part, you could recast the whole thing and have, you know, have it very well done, if not better, by whatever actors. But you can't do this film in the way it was done without Dustin. He's, I've heard people say, aren't you afraid to work with a scene stealer or something like that? He's not. He's the film. He's not a scene stealer. He's the movie.
All I can say is all you have to do, Dustin, is smile now and then, and nobody's going to steal it away from you. If we're getting down to the level of, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I think.
But truly, you're talking about the appeal of the youngster and so forth, and you hold your own very, very well. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, you know, we decided to go to him, all of us. We decided that every scene he was in should center around him, even though it doesn't appear that way on the screen. He looks like he's being manipulated because by myself in the early parts, because he's, you know, kid has no power, so the parent just manipulates the child many times. But what we did was, in each case, find a way to have that scene make sense to him. So if we had to rewrite or restage or whatever, it was done, because it had to be somewhat out of his own autobiography. Well, my dad never does that. My dad does this. And I say, what's your dad do? You know, and we'd have him explain it. Or he says, when I get mad, I never do that. I do what? I said, what really gets you mad? What, you know, so it was, we were taking it off of Dustin.
Dustin, when you were a kid, your father, of course, worked in films. Did you hang around movie sets a lot with your dad?
Unfortunately, my dad was fired just before I was born. He came to Los Angeles from Chicago. He had about $50. Came with my mother, my mother's mother, and my brother. I wasn't born. He went to work on the Hollywood Freeway, constructing it, and then somehow in about 1934 he got a job with Columbia Pictures, and this happens to be a Columbia picture. I was born in 1937. By a few months before I was born, he was fired in the recession. So my brother, as a matter of fact, who's now an economist, was a child extra and was in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, because Capra films were being made at Columbia then. And my father got him in there, and my mother had him tap dancing. But my brother rebelled so strongly about being an actor that he put a stop to it at the age of 6. He said, that's it. And about that time I was born, and they didn't try that trick on me. They instead brought a piano in the house when I was 5 years old, and I was going to be a piano player. So I never heard anything about movies or acting or anything. I was just, you know, playing piano every day.
Did you have some musical figure, some musician that you looked up to as a kid?
No, my mother always said, why can't I be like Liberace? And thank God that he wasn't my idol.
I can see you now, Dustin, in the sequin jacket.
This would be a different interview. No, well, I looked up that they wanted me to be a classical piano player, but in those days I wanted to play jazz, and I guess my early hero was Dave Brubeck, who, though he was a jazz pianist, got most of his inspiration from Bach, and that was we had a trio in high school. I played piano, and somebody else played bongos, and someone else played alto sax, which was Dave Brubeck's original trio, and we tried to play his stuff.
Who was the first actor who ever impressed you?
Oh, you know, I can remember my folks in Los Angeles taking me to a play when I was about 6 years old, and I saw Fanny Brice on the stage. And I remember she knocked me out. She had such a vitality. I was knocked out by it. I remember being taken to we had the police shows in those days during the Second World War. Every year there was a police show, and Bob Hope used to go, and I used to love him, and all these policemen used to come on with their motorcycles all over the stage, so that my earliest thrill or connection was not really any particular actor, but it was this event which was taking place on the stage. It used to do something to me. I can't quite explain. I never thought about being an actor, but then when I started going to movies, I'd say in grammar school, I loved John Garfield, I remember loving Lee J. Cobb because he was, and I remember loving Gregory Peck. I wanted my father to be like Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck in The Yearling, especially, you know, with his son and the deer. I loved Humphrey Bogart. I loved Jane Wyman. I liked Jeannie Crane. That was my family of actors. I think those were people. I love Gene Kelly. I wanted to, you know, those. I love the East Side Kids, Leo Gorcey and the East Side Kids. Laurel and Hardy I loved. Some actors I didn't like. Never liked Raymond Massey. Didn't like Loretta Young. You know, I had like a whole group that I didn't want to. It's funny the prejudices you have when you're a kid.
Dustin, you have 3 Academy nominations: The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, and Lenny. Do you think that represents the 3 best things you've ever done?
No. Marlon Brando, I think there's some good work in those films. I mean, the parts I play with. Marlon Brando once said in an interview I read, and it's very true, actors have a tendency to be closer to that than other people, including directors. And that is that actors know more than anyone how tough a role is as to a flashy role that, like there's a lot of roles that people get Academy Awards for and nominations that any one of a group of actors that are worth their salt could do just about as well. But because the part is so flashy and it has so many tap dances in it that you can do, that people tend to, critics, even directors, say, gee, what a great performance. And there are those other performances which are rather thankless roles because they don't have a lot of flashy things, which aren't the hardest things to do as an actor. There's tougher things to do that tend to become thankless roles. Al Pacino's performance in Godfather 2 is probably, I think, the best work he's ever done, yet people will respond more to Dog Day Afternoon, let's say, or things that he did which were flashier.
What do you think is the best thing you've done then?
I haven't done it yet. I have pieces. There's a big piece, I think, in Cowboy, because it's close to what I want to do. I guess it's not just acting a character, but it's investing a point of view about life within that, so that you're making a statement about what you feel strongly about. But I have not felt in anything I've done that I've had a chunk of my, you know, of the total limitation of my own talent, and I strive for that still. Sometimes I go to the Columbia Studios now because we're involved with promoting Kramer, and I'll be walking through the halls and they have photographs on the walls of all their movies, and I'll see a photograph like Marlon Brando sitting with Rod Steiger in the taxi cab of On the Waterfront, where he says, "You're my brother, you should have." And I say, when can I get into something like that? When can I fill myself out like I feel that he did there? I have real favorites in performances, and that's one of them.
Dustin, you know what? We're going to have to stop this because they're giving us ugly looks and signals. Anyway, what a thrill.
Well,
I have enjoyed this very, very much.
Thank you. I hope you don't cut any of it, the early part especially.
Oh, right. I'll make a deal with you anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dustin. And take care of your buns.
Thank you. She's all right. That's a great interview. Who's your sponsor? Hot Cross Brothers.
Okay.
Let's play. Don't rush on. Put a playback on the first minute of that.
Okay, about like that? Is that good? This way? All right, let me do the questions first, if I may. Dustin, I know on this tour you're going to do something like 350 interviews promoting Kramer versus Kramer. Now, what I want to know is, why are you working your buns off?
Because I have big buns here. And if you were to come up to my hotel room.
Okay. Okay. All right, next question. Does this film in any way at all touch your personal life, Dustin?
No, but it sure touches my lungs.
All right. Next question.
Go.
Dustin, supposing this child, Justin Henry, who is wonderful in the film, but supposing he had not worked out, what would you have done? Okay. All right. Okay, next question. Who was the first actor who was the first actor who ever really impressed you?
My father, when he said, I love you, I knew he was acting.
Again? Another one? Okay. Was there some musical figure or some musician you hope to be like? All right. Okay. All right.